is up, everybody? Joe Sib here, Rad Parenting with my co-host,
Anea.
And someday we may start a show another way. It's every time we started exactly the same way.
Right? Well, we're like hip-hop stars. We have to be like saying our names as much as possible so nobody knows.
There you go. I literally went through some of the episodes because I was sending some to some people. They were like, hey, I want to hear Rad Parenting. I've heard about it. What episodes do you want me to send? And I was going through, and everyone starts out with, hey, Joe Sib here, Rad Parenting. And then, hi, I'm Anea. Like right there, both of us together. We're predictable. We've had coffee. You just got back from Paris.
I did.
That was amazing, right?
Yeah, we can't talk about that too much, but yes.
That's a whole other episode, right?
That's an episode about what it is to travel overseas with your mother-in-law.
You know what? I'm telling you right now, that would be a great show. Because I can tell you right now, listeners are like, whatever you're going to talk about, it will not be as good. So you were, just really quick, can I just break it down?
Sure.
How long were you in Paris with your mother-in-law?
6 days with my mother-in-law and my two daughters.
Okay.
And it was, we made the most of the time there. I was very happy about that. My little one has this strange affinity for the Eiffel Tower that nobody can explain. At one point, actually, her two favorite things are the Statue of Liberty and the Eiffel Tower. And I actually didn't know until we got there that the first Statue of Liberty is actually in Paris. So I said to her, I think maybe in a past life you lived in Paris. She goes, you know what, Mama? I think I did. I think I was a pigeon.
And there are a lot of them there. I love that.
Anyway, so it was very good. But let me tell you that, post, the terrorist attacks, we spent so much time in line at the airport, getting into 2 hours to get through customs on the way in, another 2 hours on the way out. We had to go through customs, and every single major site that we went to, because it was it's a potential target, the security was just insane.
Yeah. And as you can imagine, that's pretty much going on everywhere right now. Just this summer, it's been so tight, which leads me into sidebar for everybody. We are pulling together a show that Anea and I have been I want to say we've had the idea for a while, and finally it's going to come actually and happen, is we're bringing in an expert to talk about when and how to talk to our kids.
I love it when I have to listen to you for 30 seconds before I know what it is you're about to say.
Because you don't remember me telling you that we lined this up. And we're going to actually have an expert come in and basically talk about when and how to talk to our kids about the type of terrorist activity that's going on.
Right.
And do it in a way that, can make them aware of what's going on. But
without
also
being terrifying and scarring them for life.
I'm super excited for that particular show because the woman that's coming in, she's an expert. She's written a book, and we're setting it all up. So that's going to be coming in the next couple of weeks. So we got that going on. Got to thank everyone for all of the emails. They've been amazing. Keep them coming. radparenting@gmail.com. And it's been a great last couple of weeks with all these different episodes. Super excited about the guests that we have in here right now, because we've gotten a lot of emails from you guys about single moms out there that are like, hey, I love your show about, United Front, or I love your show about dad shaming, or I love your show about divorce. Hey, can we do a show on being a mom and just being a single parent? So we're handling that. And you ready for this? Full curveball coming in, because we have an actress. She's on a Nickelodeon show, Lost in the West. I'm just going to say her name right now. Fallon Smythe, hanging out.
Hi, thank you for having me.
With a cast on your leg.
Yes, broken foot and all.
Yep. So you're an actress. You're a singer. You do the voiceover. Yes. You're in Lost in the West. My kids are stoked on that. They already said, can you take a photo with her? So I'm going to make that happen. And then I'm going to throw it right over to your mom right now. Single mom. Two kids. Rebecca Prephan. Said it right.
Good job.
Wow.
Yeah, hi.
That's
Thanks
the
for
intro.
having me.
I can hardly wait till the day we can get a camera in here and we can have full video to go with the episode so people can see how much Joe talks with his hands.
You would know this is an Italian guy right here. So the reason that I had to set that intro up was there's a lot we're going to talk about today on the show.
Yes.
And I don't even know what the title will be when you guys are checking it. You'll see the title that we came up with. But right now, like I said, Rebecca, single mom. I want to hear that entire journey because you've done it by yourself. Mm-hmm. Like when I asked Fallon, was your mom really single mom? She said, by herself, the whole ride,
and not just Fallon, but also her brother. So two children. Like that, it's no joke. I've been a single mom with one child. I can't even imagine that being doubled.
And then we're going to go from that journey into your whole acting and your experience with everything that you're doing as a young woman, 18 years old in Hollywood. Because I got to say right now, when you were coming in, I didn't know what your vibe would be like.
Right.
And you are the most down-to-earth person that I've met and I've met a lot of people in show business. Like
We're here in LA, people.
And I sound super old because I called it show business. I don't think I've ever. I don't know.
No business.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So with all of that said, let's start with you, Rebecca, single mom. You've done the whole ride yourself. You've got 2 wonderful kids, both in entertainment business.
Thank you.
Let's by yourself.
I know.
How is that?
I know. You never expect to do it by yourself, but it's just how things, take their own turn. So yeah, I had my children when I was, I felt young. I don't feel as young anymore. Today, I do not feel that way. But yeah, it's been quite a ride. I have amazing kids. We have learned a lot together, not just them learning from me. So it's been a journey.
And when you said something that I think all of us go through, that you weren't expecting to be the single mom.
No.
So, go back to when you were growing up. Where were you raised? What was the family that you grew up in?
Well,
that you were expecting, I'm going to mirror that.
That would have set your expectation for here's how this looks when you decide to have children.
Exactly. So I have a Middle Eastern family. So we're very family-oriented, much like Italians. When it's a family, it's a big family. So gatherings were always large. It was very dynamic, loud, a couple languages going on. So, yeah. And it was just the way it was for me growing up. Now, I was an only child. And there was a dynamic with my parents where my parents actually got married overseas. It was an arranged marriage back in the day when they actually did that. So when my parents came to the States, that took on its own life. They divorced, which is unheard of. And my mother remarried to someone who actually raised me. So I felt like I always had the 2-parent dynamic in my life. I had a good relationship with my father, and I had my stepfather, who is truly my best friend. So it was really an amazing experience for me. So I always had this vision in my mind. There would always be someone with me regardless.
Even if it wasn't, because I think it's really interesting that your history was not traditional in the sense that it wasn't like you had this nuclear family, your parents stayed together, they're still married. You had the experience of, divorce with your parents, but then another person stepping in. And then it sounds like also still having a relationship with your father. So that was not grounds for, I know exactly what it's going to be like to raise 2 children on my own.
That is right. I had no awareness of what that would actually look like. Mm-hmm. The idea of having kids was scary. I think it's scary for many of us. But when I actually was confronted with having 2 children and releasing any expectation of somebody else co-parenting with me, and sitting in that for a moment and accepting it, that's when that transition for me actually happened where, okay, I got to own this. Like, this is what it looks like for me, and this is what I have to do. So that's where I actually just grabbed it and said, let's go.
So I think that's interesting, and I know from my own experience, and it's interesting you put it that way, of sort of making peace with, here's the reality. I need to be the best mother that I can be. But that idea of releasing the idea, because there's this whole other part of it that I know was a struggle for me, of how do I find that sweet spot of being a great parent and doing everything I can and probably actually caring more than I should have, but also holding the other parent who had contributed to this new life coming into the world, fulfilling his obligation to do right by that child and make sure that resources were provided for her, and that. So I'm interested in how that piece of it. So there's one thing with the day-to-day, like the doing, but did that other piece ever come in for you where you had to say, okay, I have to make a decision about whether I fight to make sure that there's, say financial resources that come from from their father, or I'm just going to do this on my own and then have the most say on the day-to-day and not have to navigate, yes, he's contributing, but he also thinks he's going to have a say even though he's not here on the day-to-day.
Right.
Did I just go into dicey territory?
Well, there's a lot there. I think as a single parent, we always hope that at some point, regardless, that person steps up and wants to partake and wants to be a part of and wants to contribute. And they do all the right things that they're supposed to do, that we believe they're supposed to do. That may look different on the other side of the fence. So for me, I was always open to, I accept what you're willing to do, and I accept what you're not willing to do. And I had to get to that.
Did that come from you just that moment a few minutes ago when you said accepting, hey, this is what's going on right now, I got to move forward, and not maybe spending time on the negative aspect of it and going, this is what it is. Okay, you're in for here. Cool.
Right.
I'm going to go.
That battle's going to take too much precious energy.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I'm a fiery spirit, so I really do fight for what I believe in. And I knew that it was taking a toll on me. And I wasn't showing up in the world the way that I wanted to show up. So I knew that when I was doing one thing, it was taking away from another aspect of me needing to be a parent.
When you say that, that's so important. And I think the listener right now, whether it's a father, whether it's a mother that's going through a divorce, I get a lot of these emails. Anea reads them too, where the parents are just, the email really just centers around, the father's not doing this, the mother's not doing this, I'm alone, and they're angry. Can you tell that listener, like, hey, I remember that feeling, but the important thing is you're a parent. Like, can you maybe go back into that moment? Because I think a lot of our listeners that are listening right now, hey, I'm in the front line of this battle right now. I've got my kids, but I also, I'm angry. How do you balance that and go on to do what you've done?
Well, I think we have to get ourselves out of the way. And I didn't figure that out right away. I was taking a lot of things personally that really had nothing to do with me. So when I just realized I'm doing it, why am I carrying all of this resentment and probably energy this person doesn't even necessarily deserve?
Or that your resentment is not going to change.
Yeah.
It's not that your resentment is not going to change his behavior or her behavior, whatever the situation might be.
Exactly. And I am grateful to my children's father. I am truly, truly grateful for the role he's played in their life. The children have a good relationship with him. I just had to realize that if I wanted to raise them the way that I wanted them to look like as human beings in the world, then I needed to be fully present with that and release the expectation again. And that's really key.
Joseph has his hand up.
Yeah, because as someone that's listening to you, I got to ask you, how long did it take you to get to the point when you just explained it right there? That was beautiful. How long did it? I got to know, how long did it take you to get to that place? And you have to give me a real number.
Okay. Let me try to go there. I'm a processor. I'm an emotional processor, and I look at actions and the connection to actions, and I look at the intention behind actions, and I look at what the consequence and the ramifications are of the actions. So for me, I'm going through this, looking at it from all different dynamics. I was disappointed for my children. They didn't have a two-parent household, which is what I wanted them to have. I wanted them to have that dynamic. So it took me a good 2.5 years of hanging on to expectations and then finally just waking up one day going, hey, I'm doing a pretty good job. I can do this.
It's almost like how people say the way you measure your success, it really depends on how you measure your own success. And what you were doing was you had all of these thoughts and ideas of what you thought
what
your
you
family,
valued most.
Yeah. And when you say, I felt like I was letting my kids were getting let down because they weren't going to have a 2-family household. And then all of a sudden you wake up and your kids are happy and you're happy and you're like, wait, we're doing it. We're actually doing it.
Right,
I love hearing that. I had to get that number out of you because just for the people out there right now that are just starting that journey, they're like, wow, okay, 2.5 years, maybe sooner for some people.
It could be. And here's the thing. And I really in life try to be aware of the expectations we as people put on other people. And when we have expectations, we're setting ourselves up for disappointment. So I learned to release my expectation, and whatever the person, however he wanted to show up, I was grateful for. And look, there were periods of time it was really amazing, and there was a transition. He moved back east, and I think even then it was good because that it was even helpful for me saying, okay, I got this. I really can do this.
He's just not here. That option is actually not here. And so I need to dig deep and make this happen.
Yeah.
Be the best parent I can be. Make sure that my children are guided and loved and supported. And everything else is extra. It falls to the wayside.
Right.
It has to.
And what I also needed to realize was how he and I interact. Really, I needed to put that aside. It was what his role was with my children. And whether it was, phone calls or visits or whatever that looked like, it was important for them to have their own clear interpretation and love.
Experience with their father.
Yeah, without my
commentary.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I understand that. And I think, though, that you've just touched on something that I think is also important that a lot of single parents struggle with, and that is how much do I advocate for my children? So to what extent, I found myself doing a lot of okay, so I'm going to keep making the phone calls and keep him connected if she wins a soccer game, whatever she got on a report card. And at some point I had to say, I can't carry all this. I can't be driving all the contact. And the other thing that I was always fully committed to doing was I never spoke a bad word about him in front of her. And then when she became... it was right around the time she turned 18 that she basically interrogated him and asked him every question that had ever been, filed in her brain. And then she was able to have her own experience of him. And I had peace of mind that had come in this really organic way, and that however she saw him was her own experience of him. And I didn't have to carry the load of, did I taint that? Have I messed up her relationship with her dad? Have I made her, see him in the light that my experience was based on, all of which would have been really unfair.
Agreed. And that's amazing that you were able to do that because a lot of parents aren't.
We talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
That's the worst. I'm not the divorce expert, but I always just say, you can't talk negative about the parent that's not in the picture regardless. And it just doesn't set the right, it's not going to set the right tone for anybody. It's not going to be good.
You're absolutely right. And not only that, the dynamic of, even in a 2-parent household, when parents have issues, the same thing applies.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah, and I always say this, my kids figure out real quick, Dad's being lame. Yeah, no, Mom doesn't need to say anything. Dad, you're being lame. They'll yell that from the living room. Dad, shut up. You're being lame in there. Yeah. Hey, I'm going to switch gears right now. Switching gears. Fallon, you're sitting here. You've been so quiet. Your mom just laid all that knowledge on us right now. It was so great to get that because I know a lot of listeners are like, yes, all right, I'm going to get through this journey. When you hear everything your mom says right there, what goes through your mind?
Well, I've grown up with my mom being the sole parent in the household, and I've had a good relationship with my dad. I've been able to see him occasionally and when there's time, but it really helps me get even a greater idea from what I already know being at home with her, that even though my dad is there, she really has been the mother and the father in a sense, because there are day-to-day things that you miss when you're not there. And she's really done an amazing job with molding me and my brother and finding a good balance of being fun and happy and lighthearted when then you really have to crack the whip down and, set rules. And
let's talk about the molding.
Yeah.
I want to. What's it like to be molded by your mom? What's that?
Intense.
What's it like? What's it like?
It's
Like, give me some memories of being a young kid.
Yeah, no, but I mean, or even just like when you look at yourself
Yeah.
now as a young woman moving into adulthood, and you say, here are, 3 things about me that I can see, the thread back to things that my mom did.
Yeah.
What can you think of? Is that really putting you on the
course.
spot? Okay, cool.
No, and we talk about this all the time because we have a really open household and open relationship, and I talk to her about everything. She has really molded me into the person I am because even from a young age, she would come to me with questions. How do you feel about this? And how are your relationships with your friends at school? And I had to look within that you usually don't do when you're in 5th grade, that how do these people treat me in my life? And I've carried everything she's taught me to now where I'm 18 and I'm experiencing more teenage life, and people at this age are very insecure and are finding out who they are. And I've been able to look within and see what I can shift in myself to make myself a better person. And she's really taught me how to take responsibility for my own actions. So I can always look back at a situation and say, okay, well, next time I'm faced with this situation, I can handle it a little differently. And then
Which, let's just say that I know full-blown like adults in their 30s and 40s that are not capable of taking responsibility, are not capable of being self-reflective. So that's huge, and it's something that I noticed in you like almost from the first moment I met you. So okay, so that's one. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then even looking at people in my life, seeing through their intentions. And she's taught me to be very intuitive. I just trust my gut. And when something feels off for me, I listen to that. And 99% of the time it's right. And it's helped me avoid situations that I'd prefer to not be in. And it's helped me see people in my life, their true intentions, and really helped me be able to keep the right people around me. So,
And right,
Wow.
meaning like people who support you, feed your soul.
people who make me better.
Yep.
Because I prefer to be with people that, are supportive and trustworthy and listen and can be fun. And when you're a teenager, not many people know who they are. And sometimes they get caught in the wrong crowd with the wrong people. And even though they might be good people, sometimes we have to take a step back and let them figure themselves out and realize what's good for me to have in my life. So that's been something she's
Wow.
really been able to teach me.
Nea, I'm blown away too.
I told you.
Yeah, there's people I know that are 40 years old
Yes.
that haven't learned everything that you've learned
Well,
right there.
and
can
I
I,
think
can I
that-
ask Fallon one
Sure,
thing?
sure, sure, yeah.
I got to say, so when you were growing, I want to go back to when it's your mom, you, and your brother. And as a kid growing up, I always have memories because my parents were divorced, and I always have memories. I was really fortunate because my dad was very much a part of my growing up, and my mom and dad were very. I always kid around. That was how I learned how to manage bands. Because my mom and dad my mom would say, tell your dad this, and then my dad would say, tell your mom that. So it was like I was talking to the guitar player and the lead singer, because that's like mom and dad, I always say, are like Mick and Keith in the band, and the bass player and drummer no one really cares about. That's the kids. No one really cares about the kids. But I learned that communication with them. So I had them so much in my life. But I remember as a little kid, just the neighborhood I grew up in, and seeing the other families and the things that they were doing. Maybe they were like going on their family trips, and dad came home and mom
Like
was
the
there.
Flanders.
Just they would do stuff. And as a kid growing up, I was like, wow, I felt like at a certain point maybe I was missing out on certain things like that. But then I would, go into my kitchen and see my mom and my sister, and we had our vibe and our energy, and it was great, and I did love it. Do you remember any kind of those memories growing up when you realized, hey, my dad's not here and I'm with my mom full time?
I do.
And she's doing both jobs as well as everything else.
Yeah, because all my friends, would go on these family vacations like you were talking about, and there was a part of me, for a split second where I thought, man, I wish I wish we were just like a perfect family that, went to Wisconsin together to a lake and, got a cabin or something.
Wisconsin?
I
Of all the places you just picked Wisconsin. Okay.
But I had to realize, just like you did, we have our own vibe and our own circle, and this is our family, and it's beautiful and it's flawed and I love it, and I get to see my dad when I see him, and that's great, and he's silly and funny and makes us laugh. And then I'm home with my mom, and we do Sunday family dinners where we'll invite friends over and just talk and say everything we're grateful for, and that's my family vibe. So everyone has a different experience.
And I think it's important, obviously your mom's heard you say that before, but for the parents listening that are going through that divorce, I think they need to know that maybe the pressure you're putting on yourself to make it all perfect, and that, oh gosh, I got divorced, and the guilt that comes along with that, regardless of how it all happened. It's to know that your kids are like, nah, I like this. We live here, and you're here, and I love you, and I know you love me, and we have our vibe, because it is when you're looking out that front window of your house or wherever you live, and you see the perfectness going across the street, and I think we can all vouch for this. It's maybe not that perfect over there, because how many times did we have the friends with the mom and dad, and there still wasn't perfectness going on. So I'm glad that you're that candid with telling us about that. Do you ever feel that you do not have enough time in the day to do what you're supposed to get done? You're going to work. You're maybe trying to hit the gym, but you forgot that, I got to pick so-and-so up from daycare. I got to get my dad over to his doctor's appointment. I wanted to pick up the house before I left. Wow, check it out. How am I going to get everything done? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. Go to care.com. Care.com. Care.com is the world's largest digital marketplace for finding and managing family care. That is right. Family care needs can be unpredictable. You got sick kids. You need someone to stay home. Man, both parents are out there trying to make a living. Your kids get sick. Who's going to stay home? Who's going to miss out on that cash? Now you go to care.com and they'll have someone for you that can look after your kids. Don't stress your life away. Seriously, most working parents worry about their kids every minute of the day. You're more at ease and more focused when you know your kids or your parents or even your pets are well cared for. Best part is this, care.com provides access to a variety of background check options you can purchase to help make sure that you're making the best hiring decision. That's my favorite part right there. They're letting you know there's a million different things for you to check out on the background check options so you know who's going to be there with your kids or with your parents or with your pet taking care of the situation. Care.com. Check it out now. If you go to care.com right now, you ready for this? To save 30% off care.com premium membership, visit care.com/rad parenting when you subscribe, and you're going to get 30% off. Like I said, the world's moving a million miles an hour. You just want to take care of your kids and all the responsibilities. Let care.com help.
Yeah, and she's always taught me that everything happens for a reason. So I look at every situation in my life of, even if it doesn't feel super positive in the moment, that there's a purpose and that there's a lesson within it. And I know that I have the family I have for a reason, and it's helped shape who I am. And my dad has taught me lessons. My mom has taught me lessons. My brother has taught me things. So everything in my life happens the way it's supposed to.
So this is, it's just I'm listening to the two of you, and I'm a big proponent of divorce, single parenthood, co-parenting from separate, places in a neighborhood, on the planet, whatever, does not have to be destructive. And I think that there's a lot of people that stay in unhealthy relationships longer than they should. And we've got lots of listeners out there. I know that they're out there right now saying, I am desperately unhappy, but I'm going to stay for the kids. And one of the things, I said this to Joe earlier, when I met you and when I met Rebecca and Fallon the first time, I was so immediately taken by how, here's a young woman who is, these years of any person's life are usually like tumultuous and difficult, and we're idiots. And I met Fallon, I'm like, this is one of the most grounded young women I have ever met. And so I think it's like, I mean, I feel like you two are like, you know, you should be on a poster for here's what's possible, you know, so that people don't shy away from making changes in their lives, that they don't feel like, you know, if I make this choice, and I understand that it wasn't necessarily, I mean, there was definitely choice involved on your part, but that if we, you know, myself and my partner, or myself, my husband, my wife, whatever, if we make the choice that this is no longer where we need to be happy individuals, it does not have to destroy our children. And in fact, as with Fallon sitting in front of me, in fact, there's the potential to grow these incredible human beings. So I think it's important for people to hear that. And I'm wondering how, even with a young woman who's in show business, there it is, Joe.
There's the term.
Because I've said, like, raising my daughters in LA is, and they're not in the industry, has been like, am I really doing the right? Should I move to Wisconsin where it'll be easier? I grew up on the prairies in Canada, you know, just maybe we need to live in a small town. And I have been amazed at how well they seem to be turning out. But to have a daughter who's working in the industry, what do you think has helped to keep her being such a grounded, whole human being, even as she's in that industry?
I think keeping things real, you know,
What does that
not
mean?
living in this illusion of who we want to be, but who we actually are. So, I mean, we all, and touching on ego for a moment, we talk a lot about ego in our family because, you know, the person that walks around who's always right, that's a bit of ego, you know, and that's also partnered with fear. So I try to break down ego and release the fear that we operate from. And being in LA, you know, I'm from Ohio. So I moved from Ohio to Las Vegas, and they were both born in Vegas. So we lived a good portion of their adolescent life in Vegas. When Fallon started when she decided that she wanted to pursue show business.
For everyone listening,
That's what we're calling this. We have a title. It's going to be called something show business.
I said it once.
When she decided that that's what she wanted to pursue, I originally was just driving from Vegas to LA weekly. And I was making 2 trips a week driving. So I would make that drive in a day. And it was really, really hard on me. But I did it because I felt like this was really something she was passionate about, and I wanted to support it.
What was I got to go back. What was it that got you in initially?
What
Were
was
you
the
like,
draw?
Well-
hey, I want to be a singer. Hey, I
Yeah.
want to be an actress. How old are you too
So-
when you're doing these drives from Vegas?
Right. Well, the drives from Vegas, I was about 14, 15. But when I was 6 years old, my brother was about 4 and looked at the TV, and Drake and Josh was on. And he said, Mommy, I wanna do that. I want to be on that. So my mom took him to an acting class because he said he wanted to try it out. He didn't have any interest at the moment. But then I was like, oh, Mommy, I want to do that too. And I did a class. But then she gave me time. She didn't force that down my throat at all. And then it had come up again when I was 13. My mom's friend had put me in an acting class, kind of just to get me comfortable with thinking on my feet and being comfortable in my skin. And from that, I fell in love with it. And I said, Mom, this is definitely what I want to do. And I'd found an agent from the acting class. And we were still living in Vegas at the time. And when I would get an audition, you know, in Hollywood, she would drive me at 6 in the morning to Los Angeles, audition in the room for 5 minutes, and drive
gosh.
all the way back to Nevada. And this was happening 2
Wow.
times, 3 times a week. And I can't even imagine being a mom having that pressure. Because I sat in the car. I still had my own stress, like thinking about...
Yeah, I'm going to throw it out right now.
Yeah.
If my kids had to go to Vegas tonight, and
It would not happen.
It's not going to happen. Yeah,
Yeah,
if they're
exactly.
just letting you know, and twice in 1 week. Sorry,
I know.
You're not doing that. Whatever it is that you're doing.
So hold
yeah.
on. So Liz, can I have to ask the question?
Yeah, I know. I think
what is it? Because something must have felt in you like this is, because I'm certain, I just know your dynamic. It wasn't like, well, whatever Fallon wants, Fallon gets.
Right.
That's not who either of you it happens to be. So what was it in you that when this, when this teenage daughter says, here's what I want to do, that you go, okay, then we're going to do a 4-hour drive each way to Hollywood to do a 5-minute audition.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I think as parents, we all think that our kids have something. And I think we probably are more aware of what our kid might have, a quality they may have, sometimes before a child even discovers it. So when we rewind to when my son wanted to take that acting class, and then he was basically ADD and couldn't even sit still in the room. And the acting coach came and she said, look, your son's really great, but he just doesn't have any attention. And I had already paid for, 6 or 8 weeks of classes. And I said, oh, well, what should I do? And she said, honestly, I don't think he's ready. And Fallon happened to be watching and she said, can I do it?
Oh, cool.
And I try to be really careful with I wanted them each to have something, because there's also this dynamic of sibling rivalry where I didn't want him to compete with his sister and I didn't want his sister to compete with her brother. But when she stepped up and he could care less at the moment.
At 4 years old.
Right. Easy.
Right. Yeah. I said, sure, you can try it. And I did not have any expectations of what that looked like. After that class, the coach came to me and she said, there's something really special here. I'd like to write something for your daughter. And I didn't know what that meant, to be really honest. I'm not an actor. So I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, I'd like to write a pilot for your daughter, because she has so much going for her and so many expressions and the way she expresses herself. And I said, okay,
wow.
Great.
So you had validation. So there was this sense of knowing your child, knowing that you also thought there was something there, but really getting it from this person in the industry who acknowledged it.
Ironically, let's go to her father for a second. Her father knew there was something there. Her dad knew that there was something special, but I didn't necessarily know how to approach it. So I didn't know which direction to go with that. And I just thought, well, I think it'll just show itself to me. And that's really what happened. She took this class. I got validation from the coach. And then the acting school closed. So there's a lot of time that goes by that we're not doing anything, and she's in school, and we're living life, and we're parents, and we're in sports and doing activities.
I wanted to be a vet.
She wanted to be a vet.
Forget about acting. I'm going to be a vet.
Yeah. And she was writing songs, so she toyed around with writing lyrics, and she had been writing songs since she was 6 years old.
Yeah.
So one day, I have a friend over who happened to be a stand-up comic and an actor, and he said, hey, are you okay if Fallon goes to this improv class with me? I'd love to see how she likes it. And I said, yeah, I'd love that. I said, he said, what about Robert? I said, let's do one at a time. Let's focus on her and see what she takes away from it. Again, the acting coach reaches out to me and said, there's something special here. And that's when it really, really resonated with me. But again, I just gave it a little bit of time. He wrote a short film that Fallon ended up starring in. And from that short film, an agent saw it and called me. So that's where the ball really, really started rolling.
Life unfolding. Okay, so I have to ask this, because this is really important, as going back to the whole parent in LA. I would say the sharp difference I see is there are people who are chasing celebrity, and there are people who are chasing the art of
the craft.
Right.
Exactly. And I would be worried, especially during one's adolescent years, where there's a natural inclination to need affirmation from outside oneself, and the acting world being one where you get lots of hits really quickly, and then what happens when they go away. So how have you been able, and maybe Fallon, you have done some of this on your own as well, but what do you think has enabled you to kind of have a certain armor or a certain, do you know what I'm saying? That's to me is the
because the
grounding.
first thing that goes through my mind is that the day and age we live in, some people are going to love you, and then some people are going to be like not very pleasant.
Social
with
media
the social media,
nastiness,
and you're
like-
hanging it out there. It's not like what you're working on. You're there. You have the Twitter. You have everything going on. And this, like I said, the social media. It's not like it used to be where people can not let them know that people. If people want to tell you that they're not feeling you, they can do that. We all know that.
Yes.
How do you deal with that? How do you deal with everything that Anea just said? That ability to just go, I'm going to work on my art. I'm going to be doing what I do and not care what other people think. How do you do that?
Well, I had read this quote that really has stuck with me, and it said, "You're not going to be for everyone." So who I am, not everyone is going to like me, and that's okay, because I like me, and I have people in my life who love me, and I know my worth, and I know what I'm capable of, and if I focus on that, then in my mind, nothing can stop me. And my mom has, once again, helped shape that with me and given me tools that then I can use to figure myself out. And with social media, it's a whole nother story.
How does that?
Yeah.
I know not everyone's going to like me. How do you do that? When I'm just telling you right now, if I do a show on a Friday night at the Improv and I'm rolling home and it's just like at Joe Sib totally bombed, man. Go back to Glendale.
Well,
I'll that's like a show, like pull the Prius over, cry for a little bit. Just like, it's a tough one to deal with. I mean, you sound like that's not the issue with you.
Well, that stuff still hurts. And
that makes me feel better.
Yeah, and I am not perfect and have dealt with many insecurities of my own, but it's about overcoming those and not letting those control my life. And people can easily hide behind a computer screen and say whatever they want to make themselves feel better, in a sense. But I have to look at that and say, okay, but does that really define who I am? And it might take me an hour, of thinking about it, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they think this of me. What did I do wrong? What can I do to fix it? Because I, in a sense, can be a people pleaser, which I'm working on to correct, but I have to forget about all of that and say, no, I know who I am. I know my family loves me. I know my friends love me.
You know your intent behind what you're doing.
Yeah, I know I have no ill intentions. And so when I start to think about that, the hurtful words don't bother me as much. And I feel badly for them because I feel, wow, if you have to sit there and write negative things to hurt other people, what has your life been like?
Yeah.
I'm a very diplomatic person, and
clearly,
and I don't really blame people. And when other people are hurtful, I have to remember it's not about me. That's about them. And there was this other quote that says, "What Susie says of Sally says more of Susie than Sally."
Right.
So if people tell me, "Oh, you're gonna fail," then I think, oh, wow, they must think they're gonna fail if that's what they're trying to get me to believe about myself. And so it's really just keeping in mind.
Okay,
who I
but
am.
the whole other
amazing.
layer of this, as a young woman, is the pressure and the judgment and the degree to which we tell girls and women that their value is defined by their appearance.
Yes.
So how has that been something that you have to battle, like those messages that any girl or woman has to battle, and then on top of that, the magnifying glass of
with all the media.
Exactly. How do you manage?
Yeah, well, just being a teenage girl, that's hard enough. I mean, I've been homeschooled, so I know girls in high school get that from their peers, which I can only imagine is so hard because those are people you know. But with me, it's the industry, and it's media, and it's casting, and there's a part of this where I thought for a period of time, I am defined by my image. I am defined by how much I weigh. I'm defined by, if I go in and look pretty enough, and I'm not going to book a certain job if I don't lose these 5 pounds. And that had gotten me down for a while. And that was really, really hard for me. And I would break down crying, and I would feel like I forgot about all the talent and everything that I know about myself. And I just thought, wow, if I can't be bone model thin, I'm not going to make it. Like, who am I? And Mom had to help me with that as well. And I had to remember the right things will find me. And I had to keep in mind that I wasn't defined by if my face was a little more swollen one day, or if I was a little more bloated, or whatever it was, and that the right role and the role that I was meant to have and that one would suit me, I would get.
And maybe even the people associated with that role, because I
Exactly.
think that's even like the next piece of that is in any walk of life, that if these people will see my value and what is behind that, if
Yeah.
they are people I want to spend time with anyway,
Yeah.
and if they don't, then I need to push on to the next opportunity.
Exactly. And Meryl Streep had said that a casting director told her she was too ugly for Hollywood. And look at her. She's Meryl Streep.
Yeah, come on now.
And so I have to keep in mind that none of those things really define me. It's the talent that you walk in the room with, and it's the dedication, and it's the hard work that you put behind everything. And once I forgot about all the superficial, materialistic things, I felt better. And it's still something that I might struggle with day to day. And I'll have a quick glimpse of, oh my gosh, like I need to be more on top of everything. But then I'm like, no, I am me. I eat healthy. I work out. This is my body, and I am happy with it, and I have to love that. And once I start loving it, then other people will.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow, man, I got to say, hearing
Wow.
yeah, where do you go from there, Anea? Just,
I
49-year-old man going, I need to be more like
this
Fallon.
18-year-old.
You got to be more like Fallon. No, everything you're saying, Fallon.
Yeah.
You know, the first thing that goes through my mind just when you're talking is I'm just going back to the 5-hour rides from Vegas for the audition.
Yeah.
Right.
That right there, I'd love that. That's hard work. That's determination. You know, your mom saying, "Let's do this," getting in the vehicle and making the road trips.
Yeah.
Now you guys are here, and the work. You know, you're on a Nickelodeon. I was gonna give a shout out again to it, Lost in the West.
Yes.
I was gonna fast forward to it because I know, you know, some of the people listening to the show right now. A lot of them are like, I want to hear about that because they've seen you. Like what after all this whole journey of everything that you said, you know, and everything you're saying, looking, you know, not worrying about.
All the deeply philosophical stuff.
Yeah.
After that,
Now let's get into the fun of just like, oh
Yeah.
my God, I'm on this show. This is awesome. It's all this work from doing the improv classes to this. How does it feel right now? Like right now where you're at 18 and the beginning of your career, because you're just
Yeah.
beginning. And I know, it's so rad when I'm doing this interview right now. I already imagine like Academy Award being handed to you and me sitting on the couch and I'm totally old gray haired man and going, yeah, know her. Yeah, I totally remember when I had her on Rad Parenting.
Thank
What's
you.
Like I totally visualize that right
Thank
now.
you
I love
And then
that.
they pan, and I saw your mom there.
Awesome. I love it. I'm
Still
all
looking
about
beautiful.
intention.
I saw your mom
Yeah.
there. I saw it. Like I'm a visual. Yeah, I totally
We
saw
have
it.
that
Us too.
vision. Like, we
Yeah.
see that.
I
My
saw it.
grandpa.
I saw it.
Yeah.
I totally saw it.
okay. So how is
yeah.
it?
Yeah, I'd gone through, 6 auditions for Lost in the West, and it was a tough process. It was a lot of callbacks, a lot of hard work, and reading over my lines a ton, and mix and matches where you read with other people who were auditioning, and finally I found out that I booked it. And
Tell me about when you found out you booked it. I
Yeah,
always like that moment.
I got a call from,
Was it you or your mom gets a call?
Because I'm picturing Little Miss Sunshine.
yeah.
When they call to tell her she gets into
Yeah,
pageant.
my
Okay.
mom gets the call first, and usually, because I have this team of managers, and there are two, Bill and Darcy, and they call my mom, and I know when they're on a call together, like, okay, it's either really bad or it's really good.
That's true.
Yeah, and so my heart kind of stops, I start to shake a little bit, and I'm frozen, and my mom said, hey, Bill and Darcy are on the phone, they want to talk to you, and I'm like, okay, and I talk, and they said, hey, Fallon, we have some news, it's about Lost in the West, and I'm like, yeah, and I'm like trembling in my house.
Oh my gosh.
And they said, you booked it. And I start screaming, and I'm crying, and I'm emotional. And for me, it's just validation that this hard work pays off. And the plus side was it was filming in Spain. So
Nice.
I know. And
We're going to Spain.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what your mom did.
Yeah.
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 Woo, Spain.
I know.
Yeah.
And I'm such a traveler, and I've always just wanted to experience the world and go everywhere I can. And to be able to do something I love in a new country, I was over the moon. And I would text with my cast, and we would plan everything, and I wanted to go sightsee. And when we got there, we were there about 2.5, 3 months. We shot all 3 movies in that time span, so it was a lot of long hours. We had weekends off, and I got to be a tourist, but it was incredible. I mean, I got to go to a castle in Spain. I got to see all these incredible things with amazing people in a gorgeous country, and it was one of the best experiences of my life so far.
So, just to talk a little bit about some of the content of the movie, because doing what I do in the world in terms of advocating for girls' empowerment, when my little one, who's 7, I mean, she was picking up within about, 15 minutes of the movie. She was picking up on how the girls were holding their own. And so can you just talk a little bit about
Of course.
how did it feel to you? Because I know, knowing you, that you would recognize this girl's a badass. Like, this is not, we're not playing damsels here.
Exactly.
So tell me about that.
Well, in the movie, I play 2 characters. So, because it's kind of like a Back to the Future thing. We go into the past, and there are the moments in the present as well. So I was myself's great-great-great-grandmother in the past. And in the present, I was this nerdy girl, history buff. But from reading the script and really figuring the character out, I really held my own. And I wasn't shy about my brains. I would blurt out answers in class, because now almost girls are afraid to be smart and afraid to know more than boys. And that's what I loved about that character, Lisa, is she knew a whole lot and wasn't afraid to show it. And then in the past, my character, Luna, she was this Indian girl, very grounded, very connected, very spiritual. And she was such a tough girl. She would ride horses, she would lasso, and the boys had no idea what they were doing. So I had to teach them everything.
Love it.
And so it was really, really great finding that while we were working, that I am this empowered young girl in this movie. And I loved that young girls were able to see such a strong female lead. And another girl in the film, she was also this totally tough girl and taught the boys everything and threw knives, which you should not do at home. But it was really, really cool to see that female empowerment going on in it.
Very nice.
What a journey.
And bravo to Nickelodeon for putting out a movie like that.
Absolutely, man. I got to thank you guys so much for coming in today and taking the time. Rebecca, thank you so much for sharing your journey. As Fallon, yours too. I mean, and the two of you, this story obviously is all, it comes together because there's the two of you, but it really is such an amazing to sit here and listen to the two of you, and also for your whole career ahead of you. Just, I know that the sky's the limit, man. And just your attitude is so refreshing and awesome. It's positive. It's all, positive mental attitude. That's what we're all about. And Rebecca, I really appreciate you being so open about everything with, raising your 2 kids, because I know a lot of our listeners have been hitting up Anea and I over and over and over for a single mom show.
Please, when you email, if there's anything, and Rebecca, I don't want to overwhelm you, but certainly if there are questions that, you have after listening to this episode, you specifically want to shoot something over to Rebecca, send it to us at radparenting@gmail.com, and we will definitely make sure that Rebecca gets it. I think it's so inspiring to see that it is possible to raise phenomenal young children as a single parent, that people don't need to be afraid of that or shy away from it, but to embrace the journey and trust the good stuff and the possibility.
Thank you. And it's true. Honestly, women are amazing creatures. If we can give birth, you can raise a child on your own. Yeah. You can do anything. And honestly, you can do it. Any woman out there struggling right now, you just got to look at it from a different perspective. It really is just a slight shift in your mind of how you're looking at something. And believe you can do it, and you really can.
Thank you guys so much for being here. Rad Parenting, we are out of here. And once again, all the emails, radparenting@gmail.com. Please keep them coming. We want to thank all of you guys. A lot of good shows on the horizon. Thank you guys for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming in. This is an amazing show. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you guys all again next week. I'm Joe Sib, and
late.